Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, a sharp, crystalline explosion that silenced the entire ballroom instantly. Julian didn't flinch at the sound. He flinched at the hand that had gripped his wrist, a hand that felt like a phantom limb he had severed 5 agonizing years ago. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The air around him had suddenly grown heavy, saturated with the oppressive, intoxicating scent of burnt cedar and ozone, a pheromone signature that commanded submission from every living thing in its vicinity. It was the scent of a storm. It was the scent of the man who had ruined him. "Let go," Julian whispered, his voice trembling not with fear, but with a rage so cold it burned. "I looked for a corpse." A low baritone voice rasped against the shell of his ear, the sound vibrating through Julian's spine like a tuning fork. "For 5 years, Julian. I turned the world over looking for a grave. And here you are, wearing another man's ring." Julian ripped his arm free, the force of the movement nearly sending him stumbling into a waiter. He spun around, finally meeting the eyes of the devil. Dante Vansell looked older. The years had carved harsh lines into his face, sharpening his jaw into a weapon and leaving shadows beneath eyes that were the color of gunmetal. He wore his tuxedo like armor, his presence dominating the opulent charity gala like a wolf stalking through a pen of sheep. He was the head of the Vansell conglomerate, a man whose name was whispered in fear across the city's underbelly, an alpha of the highest pedigree, and the man who had cast Julian out into the rain with nothing but the clothes on his back. "I'm not the boy you threw away, Dante," Julian hissed, smoothing the lapel of his white suit. He stood taller now, his shoulders set with a resilience he had forged in the fires of abandonment. "And you lost the right to speak to me the moment you signed that check." "I didn't sign it," Dante growled, stepping forward. The crowd parted, sensing the violence radiating from him. "I told you to wait. I told you it was for your safety." "You told me I was a whore," Julian corrected, the memory flashing behind his eyes. The rain, the heavy iron gates of the Vansell estate slamming shut, the crushing weight of betrayal. "You told me an Omega like me was nothing but a liability." "I lied." Dante's voice cracked, a rare fissure in his iron composure. "The Vipers were moving in. If I had kept you close that night, they would have flayed you alive to get to me. I had to make you leave. I had to make you hate me so you would run far enough to be safe." Julian laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Well, congratulations, Lord Vansell. You succeeded. I hate you. Now, if you'll excuse me, my husband is waiting." The word husband hit Dante like a physical blow. His pupils blew wide, his nostrils flaring as he inhaled sharply, searching the air. Underneath Julian's scent of soft vanilla, there was something else, the scent of a child. Milk and powder. And another alpha. "Husband," Dante choked out, his hand twitching toward the gun holstered beneath his jacket, a reflex born of possession. You married, Julian." A warm, steady voice cut through the tension. A tall man with honey blonde hair and kind eyes stepped through the crowd, placing a protective hand on the small of Julian's back. This was Elias. Safe. Sturdy. Everything Dante was not. "Is this man bothering you, Jules?" Elias asked, his tone polite but laced with a warning growl. Dante looked at Elias with the kind of gaze that incinerated cities. "Take your hand off him." "Dante, stop." Julian stepped between them, his eyes pleading for the scene to end. "This is Elias. My partner. And we are leaving." "Partner." Dante repeated the word as if it were poison. He looked from Elias to Julian, and then, his gaze dropped to the phone Julian was clutching. The screen had lit up with a notification, a picture from the babysitter. It was a photo of a small boy, perhaps 4 years old, with unruly black curls and eyes the exact shade of gunmetal gray. Time seemed to freeze. Dante's heart stopped. The air left his lungs. He snatched the phone from Julian's hand before the Omega could react. "Dante, give that back," Julian shouted, panic finally piercing his composure. Dante stared at the screen, his thumb tracing the face of the child. The resemblance was undeniable. It was like looking in a mirror from 30 years ago. The timeline. 5 years. He looked up, his eyes wet, raw, and terrifyingly intense. "Julian." His voice was a broken whisper. "Who is this?" Julian snatched the phone back, clutching it to his chest. His name is Leo. And he is my son. He has my eyes, Dante whispered, stepping closer, ignoring Elias entirely. He has my face. Julian, tell me he isn't mine. He is my son, Julian repeated, his voice shaking. He is my family. My family, Dante. Not yours. You have no family. You chose your empire. I chose you, Dante roared, the sound echoing off the vaulted ceiling. I burned down the Vipers for you. I secured the city for you. I did everything to make a world safe enough for you to return to, only to find out you vanished. It's too late, Julian said, tears finally spilling over. Come on, Elias. As Julian turned to leave, Dante did something the world had never seen the Vancel patriarch do. He dropped to his knees. Right there, on the marble floor of the grand ballroom, in front of the city's elite, the press, and his rivals, Dante Vancel fell to his knees and grabbed the hem of Julian's jacket. Don't, Dante begged, his voice rough with unshed tears. Punish me. Stab me. Take half my fortune. But don't walk away with my child. Don't take my family away again. Julian stopped. He looked down at the man who had once been his god, now reduced to a beggar. But the scars on Julian's heart were too deep. The nights he had spent alone nursing a feverish infant were too long. You're 5 years too late, Dante, Julian whispered. He gently pulled his jacket free from Dante's grasp. Goodbye. Julian walked away, Elias guiding him out into the cool night air, leaving the most powerful man in the city kneeling in the ruins of his own arrogance. The rain battered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dante's penthouse, mirroring the tempest raging inside his mind. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of hell. He sat in his leather armchair, a glass of amber whiskey untouched on the side table. The dossier on the glass coffee table was thick. It contained everything about Julian's life for the past 5 years. Julian Calloway, age 26, architect, living in a modest but beautiful brownstone in the suburbs. Partner, Elias Thorne. Beta, pediatrician. Child, Leo Calloway, age 4. Dante picked up the photo of Elias again. A beta. That explained why he hadn't sensed a claiming mark on Julian. They weren't bonded. Not in the biological, soul-tethering way alphas and omegas bonded. It was a partnership of convenience, or perhaps affection, but it wasn't the primal link Dante and Julian had shared. He isn't marked, Dante thought, a dark, possessive thrill curling in his gut. He is still free. But the boy, Leo. Dante stood up and walked to the window, overlooking the sprawling city lights of Neoviridia. He remembered the night he sent Julian away. The Vipers, a rival syndicate from the east, had put a hit on anyone Dante loved. To keep Julian alive, Dante had to stage a breakup so cruel, so public, that the Vipers would believe Julian meant nothing to him. It had worked. The Vipers ignored Julian. Dante spent the next 2 years systematically hunting down and slaughtering every member of the Viper clan until the threat was extinct. But when he went back to the apartment he had set up for Julian, it was empty. A fake medical report, planted by a traitor in his own ranks, had stated Julian died in a car accident. Dante had mourned a ghost for 3 years. I didn't know. Dante whispered to the reflection in the glass. I didn't know you were pregnant. His intercom buzzed. Sir, his head of security, Marcus, spoke. The car is ready. Good, Dante said, buttoning his charcoal suit jacket. We're going to pay a visit to Mr. Calloway. Julian was in the kitchen, cutting apple slices for Leo, when the doorbell rang. It was late, past 8 in the evening. Elias was on a night shift at the hospital. A chill ran down Julian's spine. He wiped his hands on a towel and walked to the door, checking the peephole. All he saw was black. Who is it? He called out, his hand hovering over the deadbolt. Open the door, Julian. The voice came through the wood, muffled but unmistakable. Julian's heart hammered against his ribs. He engaged the chain lock before cracking the door open 2 inches. Dante stood on the porch, soaked to the bone. He wasn't wearing a coat. His black shirt clung to his muscular frame, his hair plastered to his forehead. He looked like a creature dragged from the depths. Go away, Julian said, his voice trembling. I need to see him, Dante said, water dripping from his nose. I need to see my son. He's sleeping. And you have no rights here. I have every right. Dante snapped, slamming his hand against the doorframe, making Julian jump. I am his father, biologically. Maybe, Julian retorted, fear turning into defensive anger. But where were you when he had colic at 3 a.m.? Where were you when he took his first steps? You were playing king of the city. I was hunting the men who wanted to kill you. Dante roared back through the crack. Do you think I wanted to send you away? Do you think I slept a single night in 5 years without saying your name? Julian faltered. The raw agony in Dante's voice was something he couldn't fake. I was told you were dead, Dante said, his voice breaking, dropping to a whisper. My lieutenant. He was working for the Vipers. He gave me a death certificate. He told me you died in a crash on the I-95. I buried an empty casket, Julian. I visited an empty grave every Sunday for 3 years. Julian's grip on the door slackened. What? I didn't abandon you, Dante pleaded, pressing his forehead against the cold wood of the door. I protected you. And then I mourned you. Please, just let me see him. I won't take him. I won't touch him. I just need to know he's real. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, the chain rattled. Julian undid the lock and pulled the door open. Dante stumbled in, the warmth of the house hitting him like a physical embrace. He smelled it instantly, the scent of home, vanilla, apples, and the milky scent of the pup. Upstairs, Julian said softly, crossing his arms to shield his heart. First door on the right. Be quiet. Dante nodded, moving toward the stairs with a reverence he usually reserved for nothing. He moved silently, a predator's grace repurposed for gentleness. He pushed the nursery door open. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight shaped like a star. In the small bed, buried under a mountain of blankets, lay Leo. Dante approached the bed, his knees weak. The boy was sleeping soundly, one arm thrown over his head, his mouth slightly open. He looked so much like Julian in the softness of his features, but the brow was all Dante. Dante reached out a trembling hand, hovering it over the boy's head. He didn't dare touch, terrified that his hands, stained with so much blood, would corrupt something so pure. He likes dinosaurs. Julian's voice came from the doorway. He was leaning against the frame, watching Dante. And he's allergic to strawberries. Dante choked back a sob, retracting his hand. He's perfect. He is, Julian agreed. Dante turned to face Julian. And the beta? Elias. He's my best friend, Julian admitted, his gaze dropping to the floor. He found me when I was 4 months pregnant and living in a shelter. He took me in. He offered to marry me so Leo would have a name on the birth certificate, so no one would ask questions about a fatherless Omega child. It's platonic. We sleep in separate rooms. Hope, violent and bright, flared in Dante's chest. You're not mated. No, Julian whispered. I couldn't. Why? Dante stepped closer, the space between them charging with electricity. Because, Julian looked up, his eyes shimmering. Because despite everything, despite the hate, my Omega stopped responding to anyone else. It was always you. Dante closed the distance in a second. He didn't grab Julian. He simply enveloped him, wrapping his arms around the smaller man and burying his face in Julian's neck. He inhaled deeply, the scent of vanilla soothing the beast that had been raging inside him for 5 years. I will spend the rest of my life earning this back, Dante vowed into Julian's skin. I will grovel. I will beg. I will build you a castle or burn the world down, whatever you want. Just tell me there's a chance. Julian hesitated. His hands slowly came up, resting tentatively on Dante's wet back. The heat radiating from the alpha was familiar, addictive. You don't get to demand anything, Julian said softly. You have to learn to be a father first. And you have to learn to be a partner, not a master. Teach me, Dante breathed. I'll learn anything. The moment was shattered by the sound of glass breaking downstairs. Dante pulled back instantly, his eyes shifting from lover to killer in a nanosecond. Stay here. Dante. Julian grabbed his arm. Someone is in the house, Dante hissed, drawing a sleek black pistol from the waistband of his trousers. Lock the door. Do not come out. Dante moved into the hallway, the shadow of the wolf emerging. He crept down the stairs, silence his ally. In the living room, 3 men in black tactical gear were spreading out. They weren't common thugs. They moved with military precision. Mercenaries. Target acquired. One whispered into a headset. We have the Omega. Checking for the child. Dante didn't wait. He didn't ask questions. He fired. The first shot took the lead mercenary in the throat. The man dropped without a sound. The other two spun around, raising assault rifles. Dante dove behind the kitchen island as bullets chewed up the drywall where he had just been standing. It's Vancell, one yelled. He's here. Kill him. The client pays double for the head of the wolf. Dante gritted his teeth. He recognized the insignia on their vests now. The remnants of the Viper clan. They hadn't been fully extinct after all. They had waited, watching, knowing Dante would eventually lead them to his weakness. He had led them straight to Julian and Leo. Stupid, Dante cursed himself. Arrogant. He checked his magazine. 6 rounds. 2 targets with automatic weapons. Julian. Dante roared, knowing he had to draw their fire. Get Leo to the roof. The mercenaries turned their fire toward the ceiling, aiming to shoot through the floor. No. Dante surged up from cover, firing 2 controlled shots. One hit a mercenary in the shoulder, spinning him around, but the man didn't go down. Body armor. Dante vaulted over the kitchen island, abandoning cover to close the distance. He needed to be brutal. He needed to be terrifying. He crashed into the injured mercenary, using the man's body as a shield while the third gunman hesitated. Dante jammed his gun under the mercenary's chin, above the armor, and pulled the trigger. He shoved the dead weight forward into the last gunman, knocking him off balance. Dante lunged, tackling the man to the floor. The rifle skittered away. They grappled, fists flying. The mercenary pulled a knife, slashing Dante across the forearm. Dante didn't feel it. He felt only the primal urge to protect the cub upstairs. He grabbed the mercenary's wrist, twisting it with a sickening crunch, and drove his own elbow into the man's windpipe. The fight ended with a gurgle. Silence returned to the house, heavy with the smell of gunpowder and blood. Dante. Julian's voice came from the top of the stairs. He was holding Leo, who was wide awake and crying. Dante looked up, blood dripping from his arm, his chest heaving. He looked like a monster. But Julian didn't look at him with fear. He looked at him with realization. Dante had thrown himself into the line of fire without hesitation. He had kept his promise. Are you okay? Julian called out, rushing down the stairs, covering Leo's eyes. Don't look, Dante wheezed, kicking a gun out of reach. It's messy. Julian reached the bottom landing, scanning Dante's bleeding arm. You're hurt. I'm fine, Dante said, holstering his weapon. He looked at Leo, then at Julian. We can't stay here. There might be more. My car is armored. We need to go to the safe house. Julian looked at the destruction in his living room, then at the man who had caused it, and saved them from it. He looked at Elias's picture on the mantle. Elias, who couldn't have stopped this. Okay. Julian nodded, gripping Leo tighter. Take us. The safe house was a fortress of glass and steel overlooking the ocean, miles away from the city. Leo was finally asleep in a secure room. A doctor had come and gone, stitching up Dante's arm. Now, Dante and Julian stood on the balcony, the sound of the waves crashing below them. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a raw, vibrating tension between them. The Vipers are done, Dante said, his voice low. I made a call. My men are scrubbing the city. They won't touch you again. You brought this to my door, Julian said, clutching a warm mug of tea. I know, Dante admitted, looking out at the dark water. I am a danger to you. I always have been. Maybe I should leave. I can set up a trust for the boy. You won't ever have to see me. It was the most selfless thing Dante had ever suggested. It went against every instinct in his alpha biology. He wanted to claim, to keep, to possess. But seeing Julian in danger had terrified him more than losing him. Julian turned to look at him. He saw the bandage on Dante's arm. He saw the exhaustion in his posture. You tried to push me away 5 years ago to save me, Julian said quietly. And you almost lost me forever because you made the decision for me. Dante turned, his eyes wide. Don't make decisions for me, Dante. Julian stepped closer. I am not a damsel. I am a father. And I am tired of running. What are you saying? Dante asked, his heart hammering. I'm saying. Julian reached out, his fingers grazing Dante's uninjured hand. Leo asked about you. He asked who the big man was. What did you tell him? I told him. Julian took a breath. that you were his father, and that you were going to try very hard to be a good one. Dante flipped his hand over, interlacing his fingers with Julian's. The fit was perfect. It always had been. I will, Dante swore. I will be the best. And as for us, Julian looked up, his eyes searching Dante's. We have a lot of work to do. I don't forgive you yet. Not fully. You broke me, Dante. I know. But, Julian leaned in, his forehead resting against Dante's chest. You can start by staying. You can start by having breakfast with us tomorrow. Elias will be there too. You have to be nice. Dante let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for 5 years. A small, genuine smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I can be nice. For you. Julian closed his eyes, listening to the steady, powerful beat of Dante's heart. Then start now. Dante wrapped his arms around Julian, pulling him close, shielding him from the wind. The storm had passed. The family was broken, scarred, and strange. But it was together. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Dante crawl for forgiveness, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a partner who left you to protect you? Or is trust once broken gone forever? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,